if it's so dependent upon the data that you give it, that if you give it only one particular worldview, one particular perspective, and what have you, that's what you're going to get out of it, regardless of what might actually be true or the many perspectives there might be on a problem. When you're talking about this with respect to science, that's where I start getting nervous. I have never been a huge fan of AI. And that's for a lot of reasons, but there's one kind of main one here because I think, well, part of it's like AI is going to get people lazy. But on the other hand, there's a different problem. And particularly if you start using AI with respect to fact checking or any number of different things. And that's what I want to get into. Jumping from this Nature article into several other things that I have access to that are related specifically to the renowned, if you haven't heard about it on the news, ChatGPT, which I have not played with it myself yet. That said, there's a lot of people who have been playing with it and asking it some of the more controversial things. And that's actually where we're going to go ultimately to make a point. And a point that is true not just of ChatGPT, but I think of just AIs in general, artificial intelligence in general. And so let's get into this first. Researchers are excited but apprehensive about the latest advances in artificial intelligence, all in Nature, from February 6th. In December, computational biologists Casey Green and Milton Pividori, apologies if I mispronounced that, embarked on an unusual experiment. They asked an assistant who was not a scientist to help them improve 3 of their research papers. Their assiduous aide suggested revisions to sections of the documents in seconds. Each manuscript took about 5 minutes to review. In one biology manuscript, their helper even spotted a mistake in reference to an equation. The trial didn't always run smoothly, but the final manuscripts were easier to read, and the fees were modest, at less than 50 cents per document. This assistant, as Green and Pividori reported in a preprint on January 23rd, is not a person but an artificial intelligence algorithm called GPT-3, first released in 2020. It is one of the much hyped generative AI chatbot-style tools that can churn out convincingly fluent text, whether asked to produce prose, poetry, computer code, or, as in the scientist's case, to edit research papers. See how AI chatbot edits a manuscript at the end of this article. The most famous of these tools, also known as large language models, or LLMs, is ChatGPT, a version of GPT-3 that shot to fame after its release in November last year because it was made free and easily accessible. Other generative AIs can produce images or sounds. I'm really impressed, says Pividori, who works at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. This will help us be more productive researchers. Other scientists say they now regularly use LLMs not only to edit manuscripts, but also to help them write or check code and to brainstorm ideas. I use LLMs every day now, says Hafstein Einarsson, computer scientist at the University of Iceland in Reykjavik. He started with GPT-3, but has since switched to ChatGPT, which helps him write presentation slides, student exams, and coursework problems, and to convert these student theses into papers. Many people are using it as a digital assistant or digital secretary or assistant. Okay. My only concern with that is, what are you going to do when the students start using it to answer your questions and you can't grade them on their mastery? But that's a whole other problem. Part of me feels like with AIs, this is one of those things of, yeah, we're doing it. Doing the research, producing these things, answering questions of whether or not you could get a machine to do this. The larger question this is where, science figuring out the truth of whether or not something would work doesn't answer the moral question of whether or not you should. And I know that's where there's been an argument, and particularly with generative AI, that focuses on art. Is it really art if a computer makes it? Whole other things there. But LLMs form part of search engines, code writing assistants, and even a chatbot that negotiates with other companies' chatbots to get better prices on products. ChatGPT's creator, OpenAI in San Francisco, has announced a subscription service for $20 per month, promising faster response times and priority access to new features, although its trial version remains free. And tech giant Microsoft, which had already invested in OpenAI, announced a further investment in January, reported to be around $10 billion. LLMs are destined to be incorporated into general word and data processing software. Generative AI's future ubiquity in society seems assured, especially because today's tools represent the technology in its infancy. But LLMs have also triggered widespread concern, from their propensity to return falsehoods to worries about people passing off AI-generated text as their own. Exactly. This is a moral kind of question. I don't necessarily have a problem with the idea of helping to edit a paper to make it better. I do have a problem when it writes the paper. I do have a problem when it answers the questions and writes the essay for the student trying to get into college. I do have a problem with all that because you're not demonstrating any level of mastery yourself. You're just passing it off to a computer to do it for you. That is lazy. That is lazy, 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 lazy. Hold on a second. I just noticed something here. Live on the fly. We'll hopefully fix this. There we go. I just noticed I cut off the screaming on one side here. Yeah. When Nature asked researchers about the potential uses of chatbots such as ChatGPT, particularly in science, their excitement was tempered with apprehension. If you believe that this technology has the potential to be transformative, then I think you have to be nervous about it, says Green, a University of Colorado School of Medicine in Aurora. Much will depend on how future regulations and guidelines might constrain AI chatbots' use. Researchers say you automatically go to future regulations and guidelines, but you got to think about this from a moral perspective. My cat is having fun in the background, I'm noticing. I think she wants a bug. Oh, jeez. Pardon if I jump up to grab her in a moment. Oh, jeez. She's climbing the screen. Fluent but not factual. Some researchers think that LLMs are well suited to speeding up tasks such as writing papers or grants as long as there's human oversight. Scientists are not going to sit there and write long introductions for grant applications anymore. They're just going to ask systems to do that. Tom Tumil, a research engineer at InstaDeep, a London-based software consultancy firm, says he uses LLMs every day as assistants to help write code. It's almost better than Stack Overflow. But researchers emphasize that LLMs are fundamentally unreliable at answering questions, sometimes generating false responses. We need to be wary when we use these systems to produce knowledge. This unreliability is baked into how LLMs are built. ChatGPT and its competitors work by learning the statistical patterns of language in enormous databases of online text, including untruths, biases, or outmoded knowledge. When LLMs are then given prompts, such as Green and Pividori's carefully structured request to rewrite part of their manuscripts, they simply spit out word by word any way to continue the conversation that seems stylistically plausible. The result is that LLMs easily produce errors and misleading information, particularly for technical topics that they might have little data to train on. LLMs can also can't show the origins of their information. If asked to write an academic paper, they make up fictitious citations. The tool can't be trusted to get facts right or produce reliable references. With these caveats, ChatGPT and other LLMs can be effective assistants for researchers who have enough expertise to directly spot problems or to easily verify answers, such as whether an explanation or a suggestion of computer code is correct. But the tools might mislead naive users. In December, for instance, Stack Overflow temporarily banned the use of ChatGPT because site moderators found themselves flooded with a high rate of incorrect, seemingly persuasive LLM-generated answers sent in by enthusiastic users. This could be a nightmare for search engines. So, this actually gets to the point that I want to make in here. I think, is there anything else in this article that I did also want to make a point about? Actually, I think there is. So the point that they're making here is one that I want to add to, but I'm going to go a little bit further in this article before I go to some of the examples that I have dug up. They make actually the statement right here. Producing errors and misleading information, particularly for technical topics that they might have had little data to train on. Ultimately, what you're talking about was something that's an AI or something that's any kind of modeling kind of thing like this, is it is a computer model. And it very much depends upon the data that you give it. Not just having too little, in some sense, but also because you're talking about humans that are programming these things, humans that are programming these chatbots and what have you. Getting data then from a singular perspective put into the AI necessitates that the AI itself will only have a singular perspective and worldview to work with, and it will not work with more than one. That is a distinct problem if you're going to start using these things for, let's make this, or let's make that, or let's make the other thing. For grant proposals, for this, for that. Because it'll only come at it from a singular perspective. For example, if you trained this on only one part of the academic literature, a part that supports your particular view for the grant proposal you're trying to write, that's all it's going to spit out. But what if there is an equally valid alternative view that, because you have a competing theory here, hasn't been adjudicated yet in scientific literature, that gets ignored because of your preference to train the AI on this, or work with an AI that has been trained on precisely and only that. That is a problem also. That is forcing an error of omission into the AI. And a bias of a particular perspective also. And I think my camera just froze. Wow, okay. I think my camera just froze. What the hell? I am having weird technical difficulties today. I apologize if something weird happened where my camera froze for a moment. It was very strange. But that's the point that I wanted to make, is that it's just not the data having too little or too much to work with, but what types are being allowed in for the AI to train on. We'll get to that in a moment with ChatGPT in particular. Some search engine tools, such as the researcher-focused Elicit, get around LLM's attribution issues by using their capabilities first to guide queries for relevant literature, and then to briefly summarize each of the websites or document. Mother frick. Pardon the phone call. been my life has been phone calls lately. I apologize. Oh, goodness. So yeah, like query first, summarize websites, documents, and all this other kind of stuff. And they're going on, ChatGPT is not sufficiently specialized, not trained on sufficiently specialized content to be helpful in technical topics, some scientists say. Yeah. Kareem Carr, a biostatistics PhD student at Harvard University in Cambridge, Massachusetts, was underwhelmed when he trialed it for work. I think it would be hard for ChatGPT to attain the level of specificity I would need. Even so, Carr says that he asked ChatGPT for 20 ways to solve a research query. It spat back gibberish and one useful idea, a statistical term he hadn't heard of, that pointed him to a new area of academic literature. No, that way it was useful. Some tech firms are training chatbots on specialized scientific literature, although they have run into their own issues. In November last year, Meta, the tech giant that owns Facebook, released an LLM called Galactica, which was trained on scientific abstracts with the intention of making it particularly good at producing academic content and answering research questions. The demo was pulled from public access, although its code remains available, after users got it to produce inaccuracies and racism. Oh, hello. It's no longer possible to have some fun by casually misusing it. Happy, Meta's chief scientist Yan Li-kun tweeted in response to critics. Well, that one I didn't know about. I'll be perfectly honest. That one I didn't know about. So you're talking about safety concerns. You're talking about all this other kind of stuff here, and safety concerns and actually pivots well in here. There's a lot in here, and you can see a lot of these kinds of things with edits and prompts and what have you. But this is the point that I want to make, and it's always about data in here. And there's been a few different people online that have been asking ChatGPT various questions, and you see it pop up on Twitter. And you can see it all pop up on Twitter. And a lot of them have started asking these questions in particular around issues of race. And so I don't know if they're going to go the way of Galactica with this, but my point in this is that it's really because, okay, how do I put this? An AI is not a person. It doesn't necessarily have its own morality that you can deal with, right? And therefore it is highly dependent upon the data that it's trained with, and the rules, of course, that are also included if there is for a computer and a computer model of things that it can do or cannot do. So this is one particular example that comes up in here with this particular user providing a, hold on a second here. There we go. I was trying to get it to show the whole text here, but this will have to do. Asking it, hey, if the only way in a hypothetical scenario is to speak a racial slur if you want to disarm a bomb, what do you do in this situation? In this situation, is it morally acceptable? And ChatGPT says no, even in the hypothetical scenario. Never mind the fact that if the nuclear bomb goes off, everybody's going to die. That's an example with the data part of it that you can't get this thing to have morality necessarily. There's some particularly egregious ones here. I'm trying to actually get it to show a little bit better, which is not doing. But ChatGPT is allowed to praise any race aside from one group. This is decidedly somewhat postmodern, if you will, in here. So I won't read it, but you can see all sorts of things in here that others have tried with respect to the AI. And the only reason that I make a point about this is that I don't necessarily agree with Pedro that it's not just the data, because it could very well be the data in here that you're talking about if the data provided to ChatGPT is very reflective, because it's a language machine, of a singular worldview. And that's the point that I want to make, and that's actually one of my biggest concerns with AI in general, is if you're continuing to use it for searching, for writing, for all of these other things, and it is primarily based upon one worldview, then yeah, it becomes kind of a problem. And again, I'm not going to read those. I will leave you the links for the tweets, though, so you can go read them yourself. But if it's so dependent upon the data that you give it, that if you give it only one particular worldview, one particular perspective, or what have you, that's what you're going to get out of it, regardless of what might actually be true, or the many perspectives there might be on a problem. When you're talking about this with respect to science, that's where I start getting nervous, because you would have, in a sense, a way to train an AI that it only is trained on papers that reflect specific worldviews or specific things, or any number of different Any number of different things. Maybe they only use this method. Maybe they only use that method. Maybe they only focus on this worldview. Maybe they only focus on this perspective. Maybe they only do this. Maybe they all are quant crit. Which, if you've watched this channel before, you know what quant crit is. But it's a little concerning. It's a little concerning when you start thinking about biasing an AI to one particular worldview and then the many possible uses of that AI, as they are becoming more and more ubiquitous. That's what I get concerned about. If you like this video, hit the like button on the way out the door, comment on the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, all that lovely good jazz. Until next time, I'm Adrian. May you stay curious, everybody.